What's up, guys, and welcome to a brand new episode of NeoVintage News. Now, for you guys that don't know, I'm Jabrel, and I basically run through last week's biggest stories in gaming, give you guys my quick thoughts, and then towards the end of the show, I tell you guys what I've been playing and what my game recommendation of the week is. So I guess we could start out with the PlayStation State of Play that happened this week. So Sony held another State of Play on August 6th, and we got a lot of awesome new updates. Now, I'm going to read off everything that they announced or gave updates to, and then stop when I have, thoughts on that game. So I guess we could start out with Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. Now, there's a game that has been revealed already, but we got some better look at it, and it looks really solid, really polished. It looks like they're really staying true to what that original trilogy did in terms of general gameplay philosophy and also that kind of like brutal difficulty. It looks like they're retaining all of that, but playing around with a lot of conventions, offering new characters, new types of worlds and stuff like that, and also a great deal more of customizability when it comes to different characters. Obviously, Crash rotated through different costumes in previous entries, but this one will allow you to kind of change them on the fly and kind of customize them to however you want to. And they had some really cool games, and it's cool that you can be able to play Crash 4 front to back as Coco and stuff like that, which is something probably I'd do. So I'm really looking forward to that game. We have Hitman 3, and they introduced a VR mode for it. Now, Hitman 3, done by IO Interactive. This is part of like the rebooted Hitman franchise. They've been releasing them episodically, and now we have the third entry in this one. The first two were absolutely fantastic. I had a great time with those, so I'm really excited to jump into this one. And it looks like they're staying true to a lot of what they built in the first two, with just a better coat of paint, for example, and a new mode in there. So excited about that. We have Braid Anniversary Edition, The Pathless, which is going to be a PS5 game by Giant Squid. We have Spelunky 2 shown off again. Something again that's been revealed, but we got an additional trailer for it. Aeon Must Die. Anno Mutationum or whatever. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. We got a Bug Snacks update. This one's really exciting. Star Wars Vader Immortal. Looks like a fantastic Star Wars VR game, and it's basically the Star Wars VR game that interests me the most, which is all combat and force powers and lightsaber duels and stuff like that. So yeah, really excited to jump into that, but I don't have a VR headset, so hopefully by the time this one rolls around, maybe I'll be able to pop that on, but for now I won't be able to play that. We have some Control DLC that's coming, The Pedestrian. Hood, Outlaws, and Legends. That had a really dope trailer. I was having trouble figuring out like what type of game this is going to be. I was like, is this like a dungeon crawler or something like that? But it looks like some kind of PvP type situation and gathering loot and stuff like that. For example, that's just my guess from the trailer. But yeah, it looks pretty awesome. We have Temtem, which looks like basically an indie dev's attempt to make a Pokemon-like game. It's definitely taking a lot of the best things that Pokemon has built into and then having a new spin on it, and I'm really liking what they're doing, and the online integration looks really solid. I know someone who's played this game, so I've seen it played. It was really solid, and I was always saying that the moment this jumps on the console, especially if it was able to make it onto Switch, I'm jumping into that one day one. But yeah, Temtem, I think there is a big opportunity for this to get a good chunk of the market, especially the fact that 2 of the 3 major consoles can't play Pokemon, so this is their chance to kill it over there, but we'll see if they're able to deliver. But again, I know in the PC space that there's a dedicated following to this, so this game, don't sleep on this game, pay attention to what it does, because it's interesting to see a game adapt a very established gameplay model from a Nintendo developer and try to bring that to a new platform and put their own spin on it and see if it works. I don't know if it's going to resonate with the Sony and Xbox ecosystems, if they're going to see it more as a ripoff. I'm not sure, but I'm hoping it does well. And then they ended off the conference with Godfall, which is kind of like a looter slasher type game that we got shown off as one of the first PS5 games that we saw. The game's looking really solid. Again, I wasn't sure if it was going to be like an online battle arena type game, but it looks like it's loot progression and going through different areas, fighting different bosses, taking down different enemies, collecting a lot of loot. It's very loot oriented, and so far it looks really solid. I'm not sure if I'm going to jump into day one. I'm going to try to get more information about it and see if it's my type of game, but it looks like they're doing a really good job, and I believe Gearbox has something to do with this as well. Maybe they're just publishing it or something like that. But yeah, that was a PlayStation State of Play, some mixed bag of PS4, PS5, and VR games. But it's cool to see more next-gen stuff being able to shown off. And it's interesting that you're not just getting the super ultra, AAA experiences being shown off on the Sony side, but also they're showing off some of the smaller experiences and the indie experiences that you're going to also see on the PlayStation 5 that might also take advantage of some of the tech that is available for them. Some more PS5 news here. We got a PlayStation blog post answering some questions about compatible PS4 peripherals and accessories for the PS5. So going into next gen, there is always the question of what devices will carry over and what can you still use, or is it a clean slate and you have to buy all new headsets, all new controllers, all new everything. And so we got some information from PlayStation straight from them. So specialty peripherals such as officially licensed racing wheels, arcade sticks, and flight sticks, additionally to wireless headsets, both PS4 official and some third parties, will seem to work on PS5. The DualShock 4 will work, but only with supported PS4 games. So you can't use a DualShock 4 on PS5 games because according to PlayStation, PS5 games will be taking advantage of new tech that's in the DualSense that is not in the DualShock 4. So that's important to know. But again, with backwards compatibility seeming to be, at least to some extent, a thing on PS5, with PS4 at least, yeah, you'll be able to use the DualShock 4 for that. The PS Move motion controllers and the PlayStation VR aim controller, along with the PlayStation camera, will work with supported PlayStation VR games, because it seems like the whole VR console and ecosystem as a whole is carrying on as it is right now into the next generation. I would imagine an updated unit will probably eventually come out, but for right now, at least onto the PS5, your PSVR is going to work unimpeded. So I guess we can switch gears now into some Nintendo news, actually. An expanded version of Pikmin 3 is headed to the Nintendo Switch. It's releasing on October 30th, and the upgrade version of the game adds difficulty modes, new missions, and includes all the DLC released for the original game. Now, obviously, this is not the first Wii U port, but I think it's important to note because this was actually one of the last big ones that had yet to come over. Nintendo's done an excellent job of bringing on everything from last gen into the current gen in terms of their major first party offerings. The Wii U obviously didn't do too well, didn't sell too well, so a lot of people didn't get to experience really quality and awesome games. And the Nintendo ecosystem, if they've shown anything, is their willingness to rebuy properties as long as you put a fresh coat of paint on them and make the price proposition right. People are willing to rebuy it. So it seems that Pikmin 3 is definitely coming to the Switch. Pikmin 3 is not a game I played. I didn't jump into the Wii U ecosystem until way late into the generation, just mostly to play Mario Kart and Mario 3D World, I believe. 3D World or 3D Land. I know one of them's 3DS, one of them's Wii U. But to play those two games, that's the only ones I jumped into. And then maybe a year later, the Switch was out, and I jumped into that. Pretty heavy. So Pikmin 3 is not something I got to play. So this is something I may entertain getting on the Switch. Pikmin is something I haven't really played since the original GameCube, so it's not a franchise that I've experienced in a really long time, and I'm excited to see what they do on this one. I think it was generally well received, and it's interesting for them to be releasing Pikmin 3 on the Switch when Pikmin 4 is the one that I see everybody keep talking about that. So apparently the development for that is still steadily progressing and stuff like that. But for the meantime, I guess to feed that hunger, here have a revamped version, and they did a great job with bringing Tropical Freeze and bringing in new DLC and offering a little new stuff, and people seem to really like it. So I'm imagining Pikmin 3 is going to be definitely in a similar vein to that. Okay, here's a really interesting story that I see kind of going under the radar. I didn't see a lot of the major publications talking too much about it, but it's the Intellivision Amico event. So the Intellivision Amico is an upcoming console coming out on its updated release date now of April 2021. It was actually slated, I believe, to come out in October, if I'm not mistaken, of 2020, but because of various delays and COVID and everything, that pushed that off. And so they're set tentatively to release on April 2021, but when they were running the conference, Tommy Tallarico, who's the Intellivision Chief Executive Officer, made it clear that, hey, if things go smoothly and without a hitch, and they can launch it before that date, they will. But they're not going to launch the product until they feel that it is ready. So it seems like they're entirely based on a quality thing. It's not so much a like financial reality, we have to hit this date, but more so like when the console's ready is when we'll launch it. Period, whether that be before or after, I guess. But yeah, Intellivision Chief Executive Officer Tommy Tallarico and some game dev partners, along with Intellivision game staff, gave us a lot of new details about the console and upcoming games for the new console. Some notable exclusives are games around Major League Baseball, Sesame Street, Evel Knievel, Hot Wheels, and Earthworm Jim. So it seems like they're trying their best to forge a lot of relationships to release licensed games. Some interesting details about the console is that every title seems to be family friendly. So the family oriented marketing angle is definitely what they're taking for the Amico, that basically if you are looking for kidlet friendly games, every title available on this console will be able to be played by you, and it seems to be launching on their site with versions for $249 and $279 respectively. So this is really interesting, and I'm kind of mixed on it. As you guys can see, I'm definitely a retro gamer. I have a tremendous respect for the people who really paved the way, whether that's, Magnavox, obviously Nintendo back in the day, Intellivision, Atari, and stuff like that. So I got a tremendous amount of respect for what Intellivision means to the game industry and all the game-breaking stuff that they did back then. And I see a lot of people lumping this in immediately with the Atari VCS, and I think there is a number of things that differentiate the Amico from the VCS. It is not the vaporware type situation that I believe the VCS to be. VCS, I don't even really believe exists, to be honest with you. The Amico, they showed off the console. They showed off a working console. They showed off games. They showed off developers that they're working with. And, hey, they're doing it. And delays or whatever, I mean, everything's getting delayed these days, especially in the game industry. I got to give them credit for that. At the same time, I am super skeptical about this console in terms of really offering anything of note to be on this console. And to be completely transparent with you guys on my thoughts on this is not a console I plan on getting right now, because I haven't seen anything that supersedes what I feel like I could play on either a Switch indie title or even on my phone, to be honest with you guys. They seems like there's some arcade fun to be had on that console, but to be honest, I mean, nothing was really boundary pushing. I didn't see too much, innovative gameplay that really blew my mind in terms of stuff I've never seen before. And in terms of like hardware tech and stuff like that, I think the controller is really, really impressive what they're doing there. And I hope to see, that in action if I'm ever able to get my hands on this console. But I worry about some of the game offerings in terms of like in 2020 when the Xbox Series X is coming out. The Switch is, well into its life cycle now. At this point, it's coming up on 4 years. And the PS5 coming out, and them offering everything from AAA experience to really small indie experiences. You have Apple Arcade, you got Stadia doing its thing. Steam has always had a very robust indie offering of all different levels. You can't get more family friendly than Nintendo. Where is the niche in the market where Intellivision Amico can fit? That is my question. I want to see them do well, because I think the more players in the game industry making a noise and making a little spot for them in the industry is ultimately going to be for the benefit of all of us. But I just worry about sometimes one thing, the offering. I like the fact that they're focused on exclusives and they're showing the value. Like, hey, there's going to be experiences that you can only have on the Amico. I think that's really, really great, especially with Earthworm Jim. That's a big thing. People really love that property. I love that property. So the fact that that's going to be an Amico exclusive, that's really interesting and really surprising. But at the same time, for $250, right under $300 for the Amico, I don't know. That's a hard ask, in my opinion, for some of the exclusives and experiences that they seem to be offering on here. So I feel like in many ways they're making a lot of good choices. Some better choices I'm seeing from the Amico that I'm seeing better than like Google with Stadia, for example. There are exclusives on Amico. There are not exclusives on Stadia, or not anything of worth right now. The Amico is trying to forge those relationships en masse with different properties and different types. They have relationships with Mattel and stuff like that, and the Evel Knievel estate, and I think that's really, really interesting that you don't see a lot of other game people doing. So I respect them, but I feel like in many ways some of the experiences you're going to get on the Amico seem kind of outdated, to be honest. Some of these games looked really, I don't know, like it would have been fun on Xbox Arcade back in like 2007, but in 2020, I'm not sure. But again, I wish nothing but the best for them. And again, if they ever, are able to adjust that pricing a little bit to make the offering a little better, if they offer this maybe for like $99, hey, maybe I'll jump in. But for right now, $250 is way too much of an ask for what they seem to be offering right now. But again, I have nothing but wishes for their success, because I think I have a lot of respect for Intellivision, and I think it's important that we talk about them honestly and candidly. And sure, you could walk into a new console with a bit of cynicism. I understand that, but we have to understand that, like, Atari VCS is Atari VCS, Intellivision Amico is its own thing. And I think all these things can exist in their own way as long as they make the right, logistical choices. So we'll see how it plays out. And anytime new Intellivision Amico news comes out, I'm going to try to let you guys know about it. So once we come back, come towards launch, you guys can have a better idea for what this console is actually offering. So this is a really interesting story here. We can pivot over to Microsoft, and it seems like we have a bit of a battle between the xCloud architecture and iOS. So in a statement attributed to a Microsoft spokesperson, the company tells The Verge, Apple stands alone as the only general purpose platform to deny customers from cloud gaming and game subscription services like Xbox Game Pass. So what it seems like, Apple doesn't allow services like Stadia and xCloud to be on the App Store based on their game reviewing policies, due to the fact that they offer games stored on the cloud, not natively. The App Store seems to want to review games on an individual basis, but when you're dealing with cloud services, you have games that are stored elsewhere, so that system can't review each game individually like that. Games can be adjusted, added, taken away without, Apple kind of interceding in that process. Microsoft put out a full statement, but for now, it seems like Apple users won't have access to xCloud, and I'm going to include the full statement and story down below so you can read what Microsoft has to say, everything about that, and what Apple has to say about that. From what I'm reading into the story, and again, I am not an economist, I'm not working for either of these companies, so a bit of this is going to be a little bit of speculative on my part. What this seems like is that Apple absolutely gets splits, financial splits from every game that they have on their App Store. So if they can't review each game individually, they won't be able to get their 30% chunk of the finances sold from that game. So it seems like they're pushing back against the cloud service model because they're not able to, fully monetize it in the way that they want to. That's my guess why Apple is having this hard stance against it. But the problem with this is, especially in the mobile space too, as we move towards cloud gaming more and more, and the technology and the Wi-Fi infrastructure starts to update and move towards that, and again, traditional gaming and traditional server-based and hardware-based gaming is always going to exist in some capacity, or at least for the next few decades or so. Cloud gaming is coming in fast, and it seems that Apple's game policies are definitely antiquated, to say the least, and they need to find a way to counteract and work with these guys in a way, because I don't think stuff like xCloud and even Stadia I know Google as a company might not stick by Stadia, but Stadia as a concept, that ain't going anywhere. If anything, a new player will come in and perfect it and do it even better. xCloud is killing. I think xCloud is an awesome, price proposition, especially with it being locked into Game Pass. And Apple resisting that is kind of resisting a tide that ain't going anywhere. So if anything, adjust your pricing model, find a way to properly monetize cloud-based services in an effective way, and then move forward from there instead of hard resisting it. Because again, this is kind of like them fighting hard for the newspaper over online subscriptions, and it's like that's the trend where the world is going to. So the more you resist it, the further behind you're going to be ultimately. And obviously, I think it's important to note also that Apple has its own Apple Arcade service. So stuff like Game Pass and stuff like that, that's competition. So obviously they want to control their ecosystem the most they can, so they're going to try to push Google out, they're going to try to push Microsoft out, because Apple wants control of their ecosystem the most they can. They want to push all gamers towards their own service, and they want to be able to monetize everything on the App Store to the full extent that they can. So I think it's important to understand the angle that Apple's coming from, and that obviously Microsoft is making the point that's like, listen, this is a service, it's successful, people like it, this is what people want, and we're able to easily launch this on Samsung phones and the Google Pixel and everything, but you guys are the only ones resisting it. Why are you locking away this player base? I think these are all valid points to bring up, so definitely keep an eye out on this story, because I don't think there's a fight that's going to end soon. If anything, it's going to exacerbate as more services pop out. Cloud gaming becomes more and more of a prevalent thing. I already see some smaller companies finding ways to offer cloud-based things on the App Store using different loopholes and monetization strategies and stuff like that. So it's an interesting game that's going in, and it's an interesting kind of dynamic that we're going to be heading into. Apple versus cloud gaming. We'll see how this works out. But again, the idea that like Apple is against cloud gaming is not necessarily true. Apple's definitely against cloud gaming from other publishers, but I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing Apple dive into it themselves and try to offer their own kind of Apple Arcade Game Pass type service. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to just monetize that chunk. That's probably something they have at work, and it's like, we're not about to let them launch onto our platform when we have something in the works that can get 100% of the profits from that, instead of siphoning off what little they can from Microsoft and Google and stuff like that. And again, when you're dealing with corporate entities, this is capitalism. They're going to try to make as much money as possible. So I'm not surprised, but we'll see how ultimately this plays out, or whether Apple gives in a little bit or Microsoft gives in. But it seems for now, Microsoft's over it. They're giving up on the Apple ecosystem. But I think this is by far not the end of this little exchange. So the last story we're going to get into is about Rocksteady's new game. So the Arkham Trilogy developer Rocksteady Studios has finally revealed their next project, and it's finally going to be a Suicide Squad game. Now, there's been rumors for the longest. Is it going to be a Superman game? Is it going to be a new Batman game? Is it going to be a Justice League game? It looks like we're going to be a Suicide Squad game. We'll most likely get more details at the DC Fandom event on August 22nd, which is a dedicated digital event for all DC things. Now, before I get into this, I'm going to try not to nerd out too much. I'm a massive DC fan. I love everything DC, love the Arkham games, love Rocksteady, and so I'm excited to see this game. Suicide Squad is something that I've read in the comics. Obviously, we've seen the movie. This is really interesting that this is going to play in timeline-wise with the Suicide Squad movie, which is directed by James Gunn. That's coming up soon. So that's kind of interesting, them launching a game this close to the new movie that's going to be coming out. We'll see which one comes out first. I don't know how far along in development this game is. We don't know much about it, and once we get more details at the DC Fandom event, I'll be sure to talk about it on the next news show after that event. But it's really interesting. So right now what we have is a teaser image, and basically what you see is the back of what looks like to be Superman, and a bit of like a target on his head that says Suicide Squad, which can refer to a lot of different villains. The little target thing again, that can be like a Deadshot thing, that could be maybe a Captain Boomerang thing, I don't know. And again, I say what looks like to be Superman, but because whoever reads enough of DC or watches enough DC understands that there are people like Bizarro who look like Superman. So I don't know what is going on there in terms of the narrative choices, but I am super excited about this. And again, Rocksteady have an amazing pedigree in terms of making these third-person action type games. So being able to play as the various characters of Suicide Squad really excites me. The idea of maybe Killer Frost or Killer Croc and stuff like that, being able to play with them, I'm really excited about this. Or is this going to take more of a movie inspired angle like the Avengers game? I don't know. But yeah, really excited to check this out, and I'll have more information for you guys as it comes out. So I guess we can move on to the second part of the show, which is what I've been playing. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this next one because I've talked about it on the last 3 shows or something like that. Ghost of Tsushima, finally beat it. Front to back. Didn't do a platinum run. I got about a little bit over 80% of the trophies. I completed the narrative. I did all the different tales and the little mini missions and narrative stuff like that. But I haven't done a completionist run by any means. I haven't gotten all the banners and stuff like that. So there's still a great deal for me to do in the game, but I don't know if I'm going to do it, to be honest, because I've moved on to another game, and I don't know how much longer I got it in me to dedicate more time to Ghost of Tsushima. But fantastic time with the game. I'm going to get into more details once the spoiler cast is coming out, which is set to be soon, I would imagine. I beat the game, and I'm hoping to have Steve on that podcast with me to discuss it. So once he beats the game and we can schedule a time, we'll definitely have the spoiler cast out for you guys so you can hear our in-depth thoughts on Ghost of Tsushima. The next game that I've been playing is something I started maybe 2 or 3 days ago, which is Final Fantasy 13. Now, for you guys who've watched the channel for a bit, you guys know I've been running through the Final Fantasy games. I started with 7 Remake. I did 7. I tried to play 8, couldn't get into it. Did 9. I beat 10. Didn't get into 10 too, but now I'm in 13. I skipped 12. I'll probably go back to 12 eventually. But for now, I moved on to 13. And I gotta say, this is a game that I dived into back when it came out. I had it on PS3, and it was not really my cup of tea at the time, just because I grew up playing a lot of 7 and 9, and so that's what I really came to love. And 6, of course, that's really what I love from Final Fantasy. So when 10 happened, it was a big pivot, and it wasn't something really suited to my taste. And 13 at the time seemed like basically a continuation of the pedigree that 10 had set up, and so I couldn't get into it. But going in with an open mind this time, I'm having a fantastic time with it. I think it's really, really solid game. The battle mechanics, though a tad chaotic for my taste, I'm definitely, getting a vibe for what they're doing, and the paradigm shifting and stuff like that. I think they did a really dope job kind of playing that middle zone between like semi turn-based but a real active time. And I know that gets thrown around with ATB and stuff like that back to like 7 and 6 and stuff like that. But this is truly active in the sense like things are moving around, things are exploding, you're moving, your teammates are shooting off and doing things, and you can't really control what they do. So it's a real active battle, but at the same time, you do have time to think and play with items and see where the enemy's weaknesses are in terms of like a traditional turn-based JRPG. So I think there's a lot to love about this game, and it's fairly inexpensive. I bought the trilogy on Xbox 360, and it's all backwards compatible. This may be available on PlayStation Now, I'm not sure. So for you guys who are on PlayStation 4, you might be out of luck. Check out Now, maybe it's on there. Of course, if you have a PS3, you can get it on PS3, very inexpensive. All the last gen stuff are very cheap. Or if you have an Xbox, you're able to buy it on the store. Or if you're able to get it on disc, pop it in there and you're able to play it there too, which I'm playing it on Xbox right now, and it runs amazingly. It looks fantastic. I love that like a little sheen, that little fresh coat of paint that they put it on for last gen games when you play it on the Xbox One, where they just up-res it a little bit, they clean it up, make it look nice. Looks fantastic, runs fantastic, and I'm having a great time. And we'll see if I make it through the trilogy, to be honest. Come September, a lot of new games will be out. Tony Hawk's going to be out, Avengers is going to be out, and stuff like that, and then moving into like Assassin's Creed and Cyberpunk and stuff like that. There's a lot coming out on the horizon. Oh yeah, Mafia Definitive Edition. So I'm gonna try to find ways to fit in my Final Fantasy games, but it might be a while before I get to Final Fantasy 13-2 and Lightning Returns. So the next one is my game recommendation of the week to finish off this show, and this week is something kind of interesting. So they recently added it to Game Pass, and you guys know I'm a massive fan of Game Pass. I love all 3 of the services, but Game Pass, that's made me love Xbox so much. And they've recently added this game. This is a game that I've wanted to try for quite a while, but haven't gotten the chance to try it because I heard like middling reviews, and I just didn't want to pay all the extra money for a game that I may or may not like. But the game is Man of Medan. Now, if you don't know, there's an interactive drama survival horror game developed by Supermassive Games. Now, if you don't know who those guys are, they released Until Dawn back on PlayStation. Fantastic interactive horror game. It's the first game in the Dark Pictures anthology series, and it came out back in 2019. So I played maybe an hour's worth last night with my girlfriend, and we had a great time. The cool thing about it is you can do like movie theater mode, where you pass the controller onto another different person, and they control some characters, you control other ones, and you guys make choices for your characters respectively, in the same vein as Until Dawn. So if you played Until Dawn, the gameplay is pretty much exactly the same. In terms of the narrative, I can't speak into it too much. I haven't gotten too deep into it to say whether it's not as good or better than Until Dawn. Until Dawn was like masterful, it was amazing. So I doubt Man of Medan is going to pass that. But so far, I think it's kind of interesting. They're playing around with some interesting horror themes and period pieces and stuff like that. So, and it has a very unconventional setting of being kind of like at sea and stuff like that, which is stuff you don't really see in terms of horror. So yeah, I'm really excited to get deeper into that, and I'll have more to report as I have more information for you guys. But yeah, that's my game recommendation of the week. If you're in the Xbox ecosystem and you have Game Pass, there's no excuse. Jump into Man of Medan right now. Give it a couple hours, see what you think of it. I think it's really, really interesting. But if you're on the PlayStation side, it's available as well, and I don't believe it's too pricey over there too. So give it a shot and pick it up and see if you like it. But till next time, this is Jabrel from NeoVintage Games. I love you guys. Bye.